This video will help students in the Psychology 212 capstone course write their research proposal and literature review. Choose a research question. In your assignment, you are preparing a research proposal where you will describe a research question, review other research that has already been done related to this question, and describe the methodology you would use in your own study. In your textbook, you learned that there are 5 basic research strategies: correlational, descriptive, experimental, non-experimental, and quasi-experimental. For this assignment, you will be focusing your strategy on either correlational or descriptive strategies. A correlational strategy describes associations between variables and describes the nature of the relationship between those variables. A descriptive strategy focuses on describing a variable independent of its relationship to other variables. Find your articles. Before you start your literature review, you want to be sure to find peer-reviewed articles published within the last 5 years that discuss issues related to your research question. Watch the first 2 videos on advanced research techniques if you haven't already. Writing a literature review. You do not need to review everything in the field related to your topic, just the most relevant. For this assignment, you want at least 5 articles. Your literature review is not an annotated bibliography, and it is not a list of article summaries. Instead, think of it as writing a research paper, where you integrate the sources into a narrative logically leading to your research question. As you read your articles, identify trends and patterns in the research. Do certain theories come up in the literature? Do researchers use similar methodologies in their research? Are there contradictions in the research where different studies disagree? Finally, look for gaps in the literature. Are there places where research still needs to be done? Many articles may have a future research section in the discussion or conclusion where the researchers suggest future research. But you may also identify gaps that other researchers are overlooking. All of these trends, patterns, and contradictions should build logically to your own research question. One way you may relate an article back to your research question is to look for the purpose of your article and tell us how it builds background knowledge to understand your research question. Some articles may have a section labeled Purpose. If not, look for the hypothesis or research question the article is trying to prove. Another useful way to relate a paper back to your research question is to look for where the authors suggest future research. This section is frequently a part of the discussion or conclusion of your article and may create a logical path to your own research question. Write a methods section. In your research proposal, you want to describe exactly how the study would be conducted. Your methods section should have 2 subsections: participants or subjects, and procedures. If your participants are humans, you want to describe how many you will need and how you will find them. How will you determine who is included or excluded from the study? Include the participants' demographics, such as age, gender, ethnicity, income, or education, and any other relevant characteristics, such as diagnoses. If your subjects are animals, describe the number of animals, their exact genus, species, or strain, and describe characteristics such as age, sex, or weight. You also want to say what supplier you will use to obtain the animals, and describe how the animals will be housed and cared for. The procedure section will describe in detail how you will do the study. Describe how you will find and select your participants. How will you meet ethical and safety standards? How will you divide your group into a control or intervention group? What will your intervention look like? What directions will you give your participants? What questionnaires, measures, or scales will you use to evaluate the variables? What materials will you use? Be as exact as possible. You can add additional subsections if you need more room to talk about any aspect of the procedure. For questionnaires and measures, Be sure to describe and cite each tool. If you create your own questionnaire, include a copy as an appendix. Write an expected results and data analysis. In a research proposal, you cannot describe results from a study because the study has not been conducted yet. However, you can briefly state your major expected results and indicate how they might either support or fail to support your primary hypothesis. Explain how your expected outcomes fit into the research that has already been done in this field and how the research builds on that knowledge. You should also describe any limitations in your study and identify factors that may affect the results. You might conclude by writing about how your expected results may apply outside of the study. How might your results challenge theories or everyday practices? How might your expected results lead us to reevaluate earlier research in the field? Finally, write a references list. You want to include a references list. This list will include the articles in your literature review, as well as any citations for questionnaires or measures used in your study. If you need help with your citations, refer to Noodle Tools, a research project and citation tool available through the Ivy Tech libraries. This concludes the video on writing a research proposal and literature review. If you have additional questions, please contact your local Ivy Tech library or the writing and tutoring services on your campus. Thank you.